This video is brought to you by MUBI, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies.
I will not say it again.
God, please don't
Get
shoot.
out.
Oh, God, don't shoot me.
Get out now.
Have you ever wondered why you get frustrated by cliffhangers? Oh, sorry. Let me finish that for you. There we go. Sorry. Of course you have. It's a cliffhanger. You're hanging off a cliff indefinitely. Nobody likes that. But from a more technical perspective, cliffhangers are annoying because they betray the formal expectations of the audience. Humans look for patterns in life. We see one thing and automatically assume another. Films are no different. The more films you watch, the more resources you have to complete the story before it actually unfolds on the screen. Now, this doesn't mean a film must be predictable. Subverting that expectation and forcing the audience to readjust their thought pattern can sometimes work better to keep them intrigued. What matters is the expectations themselves. Let's say you saw a mysterious stuntman walking down the aisle of a grocery store. You would most likely imagine the next shot to be an encounter. And after this, a retreat. Some of you probably got it right, and some probably didn't. But what if I cut the scene right before the encounter and never return to it again? Your predictions would be left unresolved. And how would that make you feel? As you can imagine, the accuracy of your guesses doesn't matter nearly as much as the completion of the pattern-forming process. For an adequate closure, the development of cinematic patterns must eventually come to an end. This is where cliffhangers become a potentially frustrating experience. But conversely, this also means that if a film is able to complete the picture for you, it will increase the likelihood of your satisfaction. One of the simplest ways of achieving this is through repetition, and Guillermo del Toro is pretty amazing at it.
Aquí, aquí y aquí. Mercedes, dígale al doctor Ferreiro que baje a verme.
Sí, señor.
I remember watching Pan's Labyrinth for the first time and being in shock because of its chaotic structure. This film presents two worlds and two short stories, follows three perspectives, and communicates four major themes. Conceptually, this film shouldn't work, but it does. Every shot feels premeditated, every diversion mapped out. Everything that is shown and not shown feels complete. Why? Again, repetition. But it's not the what, but the how of the repetition that matters.
Yes, girlie. Now, make a wish. And take a bite.
I grew up around fables and classic fairy tales, which, in retrospect, were quite long and convoluted. But I still recall most of them in detail.
Now take the apple, dearie. And make a wish.
Because of this magical number.
Fine, fine. Now take a bite.
Cinderella visits the ball and dances with the prince 3 times. Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother lives in a house under 3 oak trees. Sleeping Beauty has 3 fairies by her side. And 3 little pigs, well, 3 little pigs. The reason why so many classic fairy tales have things repeated 3 times is because 3 is a number that resolves. When something happens twice, we notice a pattern. But when something happens thrice, we confirm the pattern, a resolution. Pan's Labyrinth 2 is a fairy tale at its core, albeit a dark one. And so Guillermo del Toro embeds the rule of 3 within the film's complicated structure to unify the stories, the perspectives, and the themes into a coherent assemblage.
Venga, Serrano, sin miedo. Que esta es la única forma decente de morir.
Ophelia must complete 3 tasks in order to return home. Place 3 stones inside a giant frog, face 3 doors with 3 helping fairies, and take her place at her kingdom where there are exactly 3 thrones. And as stated before, there are 2 other storylines that make up this film. One of Mercedes and the Rebels, and another of Captain Vidal, resulting in a total of 3 storylines. But we're just achieving this is through repetition, and Guillermo del Toro is pretty amazing at it. In case you aren't familiar with his name, Guillermo del Toro is a director whose works range from a blockbuster horror sci-fi, a gothic romantic thriller, a stop-motion animation that doubles as a musical, and whatever this fish thing is. Despite the variety, his filmography maintains coherence because all his films are essentially reiterations of the same few messages, just in different packaging. For instance, most if not all of his films deal with the idea of human imperfection, that it's only when we embrace the monstrosities within us that true freedom is granted. And what better way to visually depict this flaw than to use actual creatures? We see that in his first film, Kronos, through a 400-year-old scarab that grants eternal life by turning humans into vampires. We see this being portrayed with ghosts in The Devil's Backbone and Crimson Peak, with fairies and monsters in Pan's Labyrinth, with a fishman in The Shape of Water, and with Pinocchio in Pinocchio.
Okay, bye.
Even his more commercial works like Blade 2, Hellboy, and Pacific Rim have more to do with the non-humans than the humans. One of the main reasons why Guillermo del Toro is known as the master of dark fantasy is because he uses the monsters in an unexpected way, as flawed outsiders that may look different but aren't necessarily evil. The darkness is instead shown from the human characters, chiefly those that, from the outside, look flawless. This is especially true for Strickland from The Shape of Water, who's got a beautiful family, a house, a teal Cadillac, and a respectable job. A perfect prototype of a 50s hero.
Go back out and knock, then I'll let you in and we'll talk. That's the protocol. Follow the protocol.
And by real men, he means racist, sexist with a tint of classism and ageism for good luck. A true champion he is. And while not on the same level, Jacinto, Vidal, Lucille, and even Stan from Nightmare Alley still appear to be imperturbable. But like how difference doesn't mean evil, composure doesn't equate virtue. They reveal themselves as the real monsters of Guillermo's world, stomping on the weak and forcing their views with violence. This is why they all end up as the final victims of their own medicine, with the neglected outsiders destroying their facade and unveiling their true nature. Even they cannot escape death. Death is the ultimate human imperfection. Guillermo's films always emphasize the beauty of life through its transience. In Kronos, the immortal man gives up his eternal youth and accepts his mortality after realizing that it's death that makes life valuable. In Pan's Labyrinth, Ophelia's death is depicted not as a tragedy, but an eternal respite from the pain of reality. Even in Pinocchio, his immortal state is portrayed more as a curse than a blessing, and the audience is constantly reminded of the unbreakable cycle of life, that our existence is only relevant and worthwhile because it ends.
The one thing that makes human life precious and meaningful, you see, is how brief it is.
The repeated images of different timepieces found in these films can be taken as visual representations of our impermanence. Fittingly, they are found in the film's most pivotal moments, either as a simple reminder of the character's temporality, as a reflection of their determination to accept their mortality, or as a visualization of time itself. Sometimes we feel as if we have too little, and at other times, too much.
I don't care! Send me back! Hola?
Grasping the concept of repetition between films is crucial for understanding the within-film recurrences, because the asserted themes are the foundation of the many motifs present in a single Guillermo film. The numerous shots of Captain Vidal's pocket watch in Pan's Labyrinth describes the ephemerality of all human existence, while also emphasizing his single-minded character. The stick bug that follows Ophelia, which at one point even shapes itself into a human figure, ties in with the notion of human imperfection and simultaneously functions as a visual narrator that separates the fantasy world from reality. Every motif in Pan's Labyrinth, while underlining the overarching theme, also behaves as a closure. As mentioned, we find satisfaction in pattern completion. The reason why it is gratifying to see a previously shown image reappear later in the film is because such connection unconsciously indicates a clear establishment of the film system, a set of rules that govern the film. And to better deliver this formal catharsis, the film offers a set of articles that, instead of addressing the themes, realize the film's narrative arc. The knife that Mercedes ritualistically carries with her in her apron begins as a symbol of suspicion and rigidity, but ends as an explosive tool that uncovers Vidal's corrupted nature. The subtle on-screen presence of the sleep aid medication behaves as a reminder of Ophelia and her mother's dire circumstance before transforming into a weapon against the one who brought them trouble. On the other end of the spectrum, the uniquely shaped antibiotics trigger fear in the audience when shown for the second time through Vidal's point of view, and the frequent shots of this lock for the storeroom slowly exposes Mercedes' involvement with the rebels to the main antagonist. Even this jar of milk, while seemingly innocent and irrelevant, functions as a tool of diversion that prevents the audience from unraveling the film's mystery. This scene of Vidal discovering the mandrake root that was hidden under the bed is conventionally taken as the first merging of fantasy and reality, the first proof of Ophelia's journey, that everything she's been through is indeed real. Except that may not be true. The original direction given to Ophelia is as follows. Place the mandrake root in a bowl of fresh milk with exactly 2 drops of blood. But why milk? Because milk is the only drink Ophelia and her mother receive every morning. This goes the same for the audience. There are verbal and visual references everywhere. In fact, the first time Ophelia brings up fairies to Mercedes, they're literally milking a cow.
Pues anoche me visitó una hada.
Vaya.
Then the faun instructs Ophelia to add 2 drops of blood, the same number of drops as the sleep medication her mother needs every night. You'll even see that the faun emphasizes the importance of 2 drops the same way the doctor does to her mother. That makes it entirely plausible that Ophelia simply made up the instruction herself to cope with the pain. By the way, whether the fantasy world actually exists is not the point of the film, so this might as well be the faun being nice to Ophelia, it doesn't matter. The real point is in recognizing how Guillermo uses neutral and unnoticeable objects and details to keep everything ambiguous and therefore fantastical. At the end of the day, it's up to the viewers just as much as it is for the characters. Some will accept and some will deny.
No lo entiendo. ¿Por qué no me obedeció?
Es que obedecer por obedecer, así sin pensarlo, eso solo lo hacen gentes como usted, capitán.
But one thing is for certain. Those that understand the value of acceptance are found above the enforced social norms, liberated from its oppressiveness. This may be a simple act of righteousness, belief in one's own judgment, or an active stand against the authorities. In a world where absolute obedience is expected, it's those considered the orphans of the society who hold the keys to true independence and true happiness. Isn't it ironic that the only being to teach the virtue of disobedience is literally a puppet? It's no wonder the ones placed outside the cage are the most constrained, slowly rotting and dying. The ever-present images of insects that quietly roam the Guillermo universe then must not be a device of shock and disgust, but a mediator between the humanized monsters and the demonized humans.
Didn't you notice my clutch was heavy?
Have you ever wondered why you get frustrated by cliffhangers? Oh, sorry. Let me finish that for you. Hi everyone, thanks for watching my video. As you probably noticed, Guillermo del Toro really knows how to effectively discuss and communicate his viewpoints on heavy subject matters like time, love, and death, and I find his approach to be absolutely fantastic, no pun intended. However, this isn't to say that his way is the only effective way, as there are other works that focus on similar topics, but with a completely different approach, like Gaspar Noé's newest film, VORTEX, which you can actually watch right now on MUBI, the sponsor for this video. MUBI is a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover. And since every film is hand-picked, it's a great way to watch films you love and discover new films you haven't seen before. Like I said, you can watch Gaspar Noé's VORTEX, a daring film about life and death, on MUBI if you're in Canada like I am, as well as other great films for free for 30 days if you use my link at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. That's mubi.com/SpikimaMovies, so go check it out. And again, thanks for watching.